Hey, it's David, and welcome back to another episode of the Reddit Story podcast.
Hello, I am Dorothy, a 40-year-old married woman with 2 sons. My oldest son, Victor, is 20 years old, and my youngest, Jerry, is 17. To tell you a little about myself, I will say that I am a short brunette with an athletic build and large breasts. I was born in Tijuana, Mexico. My father is Mexican, and my mom is American. I currently do not have a job as my husband takes care of us financially. Speaking of my husband, his name is Walter, and he works as a weightlifting coach. He's like Superman in real life. By the way, my oldest son is taking an example from him. In his 20s, he's already very tall and has an athletic build. I met my husband in Miami when we were both on vacation. I had just graduated from university and was working there part-time. Our love story is quite long and probably not very interesting, so I won't bore you with the details. But what really caught my attention in him was not only his muscles, but also his genuine sincerity, simplicity, and kindness. A few years later, we married, and Victor was born shortly thereafter. Eventually, we moved to Denver, where we currently live. As I mentioned, my husband's career as a weightlifting coach was very successful. As a young man, he won many prestigious competitions and gained quite a bit of notoriety. In order to keep up with him and preserve my figure, I also started practicing sports. For more than 14 years, I've been doing fitness, and I must say I'm in great shape. Standing next to my husband, I feel like a kid. That's actually my whole story in a nutshell. Now let's get to the main topic. A couple years ago, my husband and I experienced some difficulties in our intimate life. Apparently, it was due to medications he was taking or stress due to his job. Unfortunately, the frequency of our lovemaking had decreased significantly, to the point where it was only once every few months. This really bothered him, but I always reassured him that everything was fine. However, deep down, I knew that I really wanted more intimacy in bed, but couldn't bring myself to discuss it with him. Despite this, I still love him very much for all he has done for our family. We tried using stimulants, but they didn't always work. Now, almost 2 years later, my dissatisfaction has become even more apparent. I crave physical intimacy like never before, but I know that my husband is unlikely to fulfill that need. So I made the decision to have a lover, but I approached the matter with caution. I was hesitant to sleep with the first man I met because I was worried about the risk of infection. I also didn't want to be intimate with a stranger for fear that my husband would find out about my affairs. After carefully considering my options, I settled on 2 people, my children's best friends. One was 24-year-old Michael, my oldest son's closest companion, who lived 2 floors below us. The other was Donald, my younger son's classmate, who lived in the neighboring yard. Both were regular visitors to our home, and I was familiar with them. However, I had a dilemma in front of me. They were both young and attractive guys. Frankly speaking, I didn't care which one of them I had an affair with, as long as it was discreet. Although I didn't have a concrete plan of action, I decided to take advantage of the occasion when my husband and children would go to another competition. So when my loved ones went on a week-long trip to London, I knew it was the perfect moment. I prepared from the morning. I took a bath, waxed, and put on a short robe. I walked down the stairs to Michael's apartment and knocked on his door. A few seconds later, the door opened, and Michael himself appeared before me, dressed in shorts and no shirt. I told him that I needed his help because my assistant wasn't home, and I couldn't do it alone. He readily agreed, saying he would quickly change into a t-shirt and come over. I went up to my room and waited patiently for my helper. Michael showed up a few minutes later. I explained to him that I wanted to clean both above and below the closet, and his help would be to prop up the stairs briefly and then move the closet so I could mop the floor underneath. He understood and asked where the ladder was, to which I pointed to the closet door. He went to get the ladder, and I got a rag. After I finished mopping the floor, I climbed the ladder and asked him to hold onto it tightly. It dawned on me that he could see everything from below because all of my feminine beauty that was under the robe was visible as the palm of his hand. I turned to him and noticed that he was looking up at me from below, oblivious to the fact that I was watching him. That flattered me, and I started daydreaming about the moment when something would happen between us. Wiping down the closet, I leaned over and noticed his flushed face. Concerned, I asked if he was okay, to which he assured me that he was just hot. I didn't say anything more and asked him to move the closet back a bit. When he did, I knelt down in front of him and started wiping the floor under the closet. Without thinking, I reached out and grabbed him. I feigned anger and demanded an explanation, but he couldn't utter a word and only widened his eyes in surprise. I threatened that I would tell his parents and also let my son know what a bad friend he had. With tears in his eyes, he begged me not to do that and carelessly looked under his robe again. He undressed while I watched him, and the look on his face was surprised and confused. I explained to him that I wanted to see him because he had seen me. As I approached him, I offered my help but emphasized the need for absolute secrecy. I asked if he agreed, and he readily nodded. Everything went smoothly, and it turned out that I was his first girlfriend. I asked if he wanted tea, but he preferred water. I directed him to the kitchen to boil the kettle while I went to take a shower. After making the tea, we struck up a conversation about how wrong that girl was, and I assured him that he would find one who would appreciate his big manhood. I also mentioned that we could support each other as long as no one knew about it. He smiled and assured me that he wasn't stupid enough to reveal our arrangement. We dated for about a month, and our meetings only happened when my husband was away at a sporting event. These meetings were just a salvation for me because I couldn't live without intimacy in bed. But then something happened that I didn't expect. I got pregnant, and I don't know what to do. If my husband finds out, he'll bury me and Michael in the ground.